Hello, 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 and welcome to Penny for a Tale. My name is Mitch. I am your host this wonderful Monday. We have gotten through that terrible weekend, which I know everyone just kind of drudges through in order to come here for Penny for a Tale, because really, what's the weekend without a Monday? But nonetheless, without further gilding the lily, which is trying to be our catchphrase on the show. We have co-founder of Broken Dice, as well as co-creator of the Newden Chronicles, which is currently on the Kickstarter right now. These links will be detailed on the chat. If on YouTube, it'll be in the details section. Podcast, same place. Awesome stuff. But let me introduce you guys to Jason Junker. You guys can hear the applause from
Fanfare,
behind.
fanfare.
Yeah,
Yeah,
lots of
right.
it.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? My name is Jason Junker. I am the co-founder and co-creator for Broken Dice, which we are developing the Nuwanan Chronicles RPG, tabletop RPG. Don't want to confuse it for a video game. I actually have been asked if we are making a video game just because of the artwork that we have for
And
the
the
game
answer
so far.
is, of course, yes, right?
That's still in the works. I don't want to promise anything on that. So.
I think, if anything, Penny for a Tale is a show where you can make these crazy promises, and it's okay. So
I mean, you'd be surprised on how much people hold on to those type of things. So,
that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, for anyone watching, feel free to go ahead and post up any questions on the Twitch chat. I know we have a few people watching as well as lurking and stuff like that. Feel free, as long as it is somewhat appropriate, we will ask it. This is a mature channel, so for the most part, most things go as long as it's appropriate.
and I'm also watching as well too.
Exactly. So yeah, thank you for being here
Of course, of
this
course.
Monday night and giving it up. I have to say, when I first saw your guys' booth at Gen Con this year, one of the first things that drew me in was the artwork, as you kind of talked about earlier. And you guys watching get to see that lovely artwork of one of the amazing characters, as well as the cool symbol they have in the background there. I don't know if you guys get to see it. It's awesome. But
Yeah.
how'd you guys go about choosing the art? Who is the brains behind the art choosing?
So the deciding on the artwork itself, it's kind of obviously an agreement between me and my wife, who's also the co-creator and co-founder of the game. And she's actually standing right there, or sitting right there, lean back and wave.
Hello.
I don't think they'd be able to see you past
Yeah, you
Quar,
gotta have
actually.
to. You'd have to go away. You can. There you go. There's her
There
head.
you go. So I will say this: it's the concept of what we want to draw first, or what we kind of want to showcase first. It largely comes together between me and her, but she does the storyboard. She does the kind of the art direction for it. And when we finally solidified on how we want to display it, we begin vetting and making sure that whoever we bring on as commissions can match that style. And the biggest key, we know that especially with tabletop RPGs that are existing, are more for the iconic players or iconic characters. So this way you can show the players or who's going to play your game what they could potentially create. So D&D definitely has their plethora of iconic characters that you can recognize when and install in their materials. B just actually put something in chat. So, this way we can help solidify it. So our first commission actually was all of our iconics, all 12 of them. And that was almost a year-long process when we first started doing our artwork. And it showcased the two characters from each nations of all 6 nations. So that way we can, really showcase the different culture aspects of each nation as well. But largely, B is the one that decides on where the art direction is going to go. And we're actually excited because we're in the middle of another illustration, so that hopefully we can showcase that y'all before the end of the Kickstarter. And it's going to highlight the major combat differences within our game itself, because it's a very combat oriented illustration. And another one that we commission is for the blending of both tech and magic on one character, to kind of show how that works as well. So we're really excited about the artwork that we're going from here on out, and to what we can provide in the book itself too. So.
Ooh, excellent. Well, I mean, obviously, we're all looking forward to that. Um, was there anything that kind of like starting out? What was kind of like the main thing that ushered you to one type of artist? What were you kind of looking for? Were you looking for something more abstract? I mean, obviously, there's a definite character focused design to the artist, and looking at the maps and stuff, there's so much detail. But yeah, on that.
And so in terms of art, where we drew our biggest inspiration from is that me and B are big fans of Guild Wars 2, and also the art style of Numenera.
Oh,
And
me
so
too.
that kind of painterly-esque style of artwork really highlighted a lot of that almost realistic painterly style to the art, but but to showcase it more of the world without having to go to very over the top fantasy and or cartoony style of the artwork.
Yeah, that's fair. So we have our first question by
Mm-hmm.
South 2012. On a scale of lasers and feelings to
Mm-hmm.
Pathfinder, how crunchy would you say the rules are?
So as far as crunch, because of the nature of the game being a full customizable system, there is some form of crunch to it. It can, depending on what your character is doing or what character you make, will obviously influence the level of crunch. So if you're going very complex magic or very complex technomancy, it does add in a bunch more complexity. And yeah, I would say it is on the side of crunch heavy, but we have a lot of options in our game that kind of helps mask that, as both B and I are very big narrative players as well. But it's tasty crunch.
Captain Crunch, right? Frosted Flakes, that type of crunch.
Mm.
For those kind of watching, we're gonna put up some of the amazing art just so that you guys can check it out while we are speaking here. Um,
So that one, the city one right there, Aeolon, is done by Leon Tucker. All of our cityscape drawings are done by Leon Tucker. He's actually done several artwork for both Starfinder and Pathfinder, and I believe Pathfinder 2 as well. So,
oh, snap.
and he does some fantastic work for us. And we have another art piece that we haven't showcased yet, but we plan on getting him to do our rest of the major capital art pieces for the rest of the different nations to kind of showcase like the different cultural aspects as well.
Yeah, I love the references to Guild Wars because it's definitely my favorite MMORPG, and the art style is gorgeous. It's what drew me to that game. So we're gonna pop up some more art.
And the magic user is Sethis, and the one with the daggers is Alazar. Both different from nations, but you can kind of see that the attire kind of loves or matches with their cultural identity as well. So Sundaria is very much heavy magic focused in terms of what they teach and the control of magic, where Kadar has a little bit more. What would you say, B? Huh? She's stuffing her face as I ask her that question.
Oh wait, we're eating? What is this?
I'm eating dinner. I'm
so,
sorry.
No, but I would say this, like a lot of the lore stuff I always address to B because she's the one that writes it all too. So, but no, what would you give Kadar in a brief explanation?
Oh, okay.
She's coming over here now.
Yeah, just come on over.
Well, I would say Kadar has a very sort of Middle Eastern Indian sort of flavor to it. They're this very warlike yet very sophisticated society. They have a very entrenched slave system and caste system in place, as well as sort of this kind of dualistic religion that they follow, between this kind of like god of darkness on one hand and a god of light on the other, that they both venerate at the same time.
Awesome.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So I've done what, like almost 6 years of mechanics and game design, and she's done all the lore. And the story about that is that every time I bring her a lore piece, she'll just look at it and be like, okay, and crunches up. I'll think about it. Right?
The perfect blend.
No, it's been a great team work and effort with B here to get this whole thing rolling. So, and it's been a joy to actually even work on it too. So,
Yeah, definitely. So we're gonna put up some more art pieces.
mm-hmm.
Ka-chow. The one on those looking at it, the one on your right would probably be my favorite, the one with the gun.
Kawara, the
Yeah, yeah, there she is.
And then there's a Senna as well. And so the four characters that we're seeing, this is the last two. They're all four in the pre-gen characters for the venture that comes with the quick start guide that you can find on our Kickstarter. And so Asena is actually from Caledon, which has a very much almost tribalistic like warrior focused type of system. They're not almost a central government, more of like different tribes that actually kind of get together to formulate this nation of Caledon, but still they all have their own cultural identity within themselves too. And she's actually a wolfborn, which is a special group within the warrior class, and that they are trained to ride dire wolves. And so if you can actually see on her back, that's actually her direwolf skull. That's on her back.
I was wondering that when I was looking at her background, if that was indeed connected to her backstory in the wolf.
Yeah, and then Kawara comes from Lemuria, that has that very much tech-centric and tech-focused country. So that's why she kind of stands out just a bit, because she is a tech warrior where she can specialize in using the available technology in the world to her greater effect. And just it's just one of the things that the funny thing is, because although we love the Marvel movies, we don't read a lot of the comics. It's more of just time or anything like that. And so as we were working on a lot of the tech lore and the tech stuff, and then we see Black Panther, we're like, oh, that's like Wakanda is so awesome, you know,
it's
like
so cool.
just like and like, you know, and that and you get that Afrofuturism style to our game as well in terms of tech. So we're super excited to kind of blend that magic and technology in our game, which is
definitely.
you know why we're calling the game an electro fantasy, because it's not so much sci-fi tech, but it's also not steampunk. So it's almost in that middle area where you do have the magic and the technology that advanced with time. So
interesting stuff. So how long do you think it'll take for people to start cosplaying as these characters?
I actually have several of my close friends that are planning to cosplay for us next year. And one of them, you've met her, I believe you met her at Gen Con, Michaela. She's the one that sat behind the table.
Yeah, I remember.
She's already working on the Koara cosplay.
Oh.
So I don't know. I mean, the characters are very, very well done, to the fact that you could easily cosplay them, and that would just make me super happy to see anyway. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious because, well, not curious, super excited about that. And as well as at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, people, we will be doing the one shot by Jason himself, this awesome person right here.
hopefully I don't mess up.
You can't mess it up. You created it and you GM'd it. You got it.
I'm gonna be like, what is this rule again? Throw it out.
Yeah, just toss it. We got this. But we will give our best attempt at dressing up as well, which is something we've always loved doing. So going back, I believe it was sometime around 2012 when you guys initially conceived the idea. How did it start? What was that first moment that you were like, you know what? I think I can do this.
Thinking I could do it probably wasn't the case at the time. But I would have to say, though, our system does operate on a D100 system, where you use degree of successes and failures that can determine the outcome of your character's actions and skills and everything like that. And at the time, I was running a 3-year-long campaign of Dark Heresy First Edition. And so by that time, you know, you run these lengthy campaigns, you're going to have your homebrew rules, you're going to have your house rules and things like that, to the point where it's like, all right, well, let's make it simpler. Well, let's see how I can change this. All right, so I started gutting and gutting and gutting until I'm just like, not even the same game anymore, you know. And and then we wanted to build a world for our next arc, to be able to explore, you know, this different area, because you know um you got all these different planets in, you know, the 40k universe, that, you know, it's like, all right, we're going to make this planet Nuada,
Yeah.
right? This is where that Gaelic centric came from because of how 40k does it. But you know, and then we started building the religion, the world history, and then it got to the point where it's like, you don't even need 40k anymore at this point. It's like you just want to play a character in this world. And so at this moment, it's like, well, we basically have our own game at this moment. And as B says it, while she's working on the lore of our homebrew system and setting, she hears from me in distance as I'm doing like the design work. He's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go make a company. We're gonna just make this our own game, you know. As I like shout across from our then apartment at the time.
And her reaction was,
what was your reaction?
I was very surprised.
And at the time, it's we bring up I tend to bring up if those who are familiar with Parks and Rec, Ben
Yes.
Wyatt, because I graduated from university with a criminal law degree focusing on the justice side of things, law enforcement side.
Nice.
And so it was difficult for me to find an occupation. So I was just like, well, I'm at home making this game. And then it's just that Ben White episode where he's unemployed and he makes cones of Dunshire. You know?
Yeah,
it's like, what is that? I'm like, I made a game, you know, that type of deal. Like,
yeah, I got my undergrad in political science. And I think from now on, criminal justice and political science will just be like code word for eventually we'll be doing something in the
right, something, yeah, different,
community.
yeah, right.
We just bring all that into it. All right, so it came from starting the homebrew and stuff like that. Was there ever a point in time when you guys had like several pages of this lore and stuff, and you were like, yes, this is going to be a thing. This is going to be a game that we are going to make. Going back, sorry, my question is, was there the lore and stuff finished, or was it something that you guys started building after you guys made a decision that yes, this would be a game?
Lore is never finished for us, especially since now that we're on the point that we've decided a while ago that we want the lore and the world to continue living. Because one of the things that we tend to get annoyed with is that forever medieval type of concept, where release upon release upon release, nothing really advanced in the timeline of the history of the world. Especially when like technology should improve, you know, or magic should improve, or understanding of magic should improve. And so we didn't want that for our game. And so one of the things we wanted to do is we would establish the set lore and then the timeline of it and how it got to that point.
Yeah.
And then we built are they going to speak different languages? And this is the time where we started going to Gen Con, and they had these different seminars of world building and writing, you know, instead of just tabletop games, on how to establish like a believable world and settings. And I highly recommend those that do want to do any type of writing or world building to check out these seminars at like conventions that these different writers tend to host, like seminars and venues for. But in terms of just finally deciding that we have enough to go with, which there's never enough because there's always more we can expand on and what we can provide. I think it's more of just that we have a lot of lore made to build the crux of the game to help assist the mechanics, because we want the narrative to drive the mechanics, not the mechanics to drive the narrative. And so that's where our system tends to come into play in terms of customability. And so once we had enough of that, that's when we finally got like my kind of like think tank of friends, and we were trying to come up with like company names, because now we need to get something to sell. And so the Nuanan Chronicles actually came a lot later. We came up with a company name, Broken Dice, which, by the way, was the greatest like discovery that we can grab it. You know, that's so we're very fortunate on that part. And then
so why Broken Dice?
So well, it was because rolling all zeros on a D100 system is 100.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like, oh yeah, that role is broken. And the term broken in game terms, it just fits nicely and succinctly that it can stand out and it's memorable enough too. Especially because I do plan on, not only at the TNC, the Nuanan Chronicles, I do plan on trying to get other IPs if we do well enough, right, to be able to adhere our system to their world, because it is very open, very. The only thing would probably be the more specialized mechanics, but you can attribute it to almost any type of setting because it's very open ended in terms of what you want to do with your character. You just provide the setting, so.
Awesome.
So almost GURP like. So I'm really excited about that part. It was like, all right, we're gonna play Pokemon. Well, here's the game. Like, here's the system. So.
And now that you introduced the idea, we have to do it sometime.
Play Pokemon with the Nuanan system. Like,
yeah, it's perfect. So let's jump into the TARDIS 10 years from now. Looking back, what do you hope will happen? Man,
10 years from now, what do we hope we happen?
Yes.
Oh, geez.
Specifically with Broken Dice.
Just
in the Nuanan
so much has happened. I mean, 10 years from now, I'm hoping that we're still making our books and our lore and continuing to give that story and everything like that. So, but in terms of just expanding to what we can get in terms of Broken Dice, the company as a whole, I would love to see different IPs fall under our game system. Heck, I would even love to just do one for Star Wars. That'd be great. That'd be a full customized character growth in Star Wars and things like that. That'd be fantastic. But I mean, just working on this from 10 years from now would be great, because this has been pretty much what we've been doing for 6 years. So I can't really see myself doing anything else right now. I mean, the biggest dream would probably be like to buy Paizo or Wizards, but I don't think that's going to happen.
hey, it's your hopes. You can do whatever you want.
No, the competition's good because I love the community, the industry, that the tabletop industry is that the fellow creators and developers for other tabletop games, they've been very helpful in teaching me different things and stuff to be aware of, that because of how the industry works in the tabletop RPG realm, or even just tabletop realm, is that when someone is enjoying a board game or an RPG, they're more likely going to buy other people's board games and RPGs. So it wins all of us. I mean, I have like 17 rule books from all different companies, and I've only played like 2 or 3 of them. And so that's how it works. We just love the industry that much and the world behind it, that it's one of those things that I can see it continuing. So
it's the primary reason why this channel exists, so I can slowly work my way through the library.
That's actually a smart idea.
It's all a hoax.
It's like the channel is providing me to play all these other games, because otherwise I wouldn't.
You don't have to worry about getting people. You just go for it. All right. So 10 years from now, successful. Are you hoping for or seeing like another book coming out for Nuanan Chronicles for this specific world?
Okay, so our first lore book, we're presenting our books in terms of different sections of lore book that advance the world. And so the first one is Uldris, is where you're going to be playing more the initial campaign setting. The second one, I believe it's going to be Marith. And then we're going to be introducing each one, because we're following Suma, who is the chronicler, hence the Nuanan Chronicles for the game namesake. And he's going to be providing the world on how it advances as he travels to different nations. So like the intrigues, the rumors, the history, the culture, and everything. And so once we complete that, I do see ourselves, because of all we learn and all we can gain, the positive and negatives to every system. I mean, it is our first system. It is our first game. And we're hoping, it's our hope that it's wildly successful and widely loved to the point, that people want to keep playing it. But, the first one is always going to have its trial and error, especially on a larger scale, but this is why we work so long and so hard on it, to just get it as best as we can in our capacity of doing it too.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately we don't have the namesake or the budget as similar to like Path or Paizo and Wizards to have here's our rule book, our 450-page rule book of Pathfinder 2, and give us a year to do a play test, and then we can just alter it, and then with that's
man.
great. I would love to get to that point, but we provide as much as we can, and that's generally where we can make it up with time. But the onset of it though is that one of the best things I ever experienced as a game designer, lead designer for this game, is when I volunteer for the local con, MomoCon, as an RPG, and I run my own game. When I did it the first year on our play test, they enjoyed it. They all say they enjoyed it. I hope they weren't lying. But the second year, earlier this year, this past May, when I did it again, and it was a different scenario, some of the same players came back to play.
I mean,
And we didn't have it. Yeah, and that was the thing. And so for me as a designer, because they enjoyed it that much, that they travel too. They don't live locally. And so for them to travel and then spend 3-4 hours of their weekend at a convention to play our game again was a big nod to like the direction of the game we're going. And earlier last year, or late last year, we ran a blind play test where we released our play test and just have people play it with no input. Same thing how the quick start guide is.
Yeah.
And when they return, to kind of give us feedback on, what they like, what they don't like, and and it was still a positive outcome. So it's one of those things that those type of small moments, those type of small feedbacks are always a positive for us in our design, and it gives us a lot of drive to keep going to what we're doing. So
awesome stuff. I mean, it sounds like it's been a journey.
Yeah, it has.
But you are here. You have made it to the championship via the Kickstarter. And as we were talking earlier today, you guys were what, 70% funded right now?
We are 70% funded in less than a week.
Bam.
So, and just the level of support on it is just been very, very wonderful. So.
That's good to hear. And for those watching, please make sure to check out their Kickstarter, and please support them as best as you can. Chronicles of or Luadadin Chronicles.
How dare you? No,
yeah,
you can say
right?
TNC.
The T.
It makes it easier, right?
Yeah, it does.
No, so speaking of that, though,
yeah,
I always one of the things. So my personal goal, as a player and a GMer as well, is that I want to be part of the question on what people want to play that evening. So right now it is, do you want to play D&D or Pathfinder or everything else?
Yeah.
Right. I want to be in the question where it's like, do you want to play D&D, Pathfinder, or TNC? So that's my goal. My goal is to get to that echelon, that tier, to be equated alongside what D&D and Pathfinder provide, which is why the heavy investment in the art and lore and the system itself, to be able to kind of provide that best experience as possible.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. So it is a post-apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic game. What do you think kind of sets it apart from kind of like the other post-apocalyptic games that might be out there? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
So we believe what sets it apart is that I think it's almost like a missing setting piece. Because a lot of times post-apocalyptic is just immediately after the world kind of ends. And it's a great setting because you have a lot of built-in strife and survival and conflict, because you have warring bands and banditry and stuff like that. But what's missing a lot of it at times is, and this is what, from what I feel, this is just my personal taste in terms of just like the medieval settings and fantasy settings, even in post-apocalyptic, is that even though there's intrigue, there's no cultural change or cultural shift in the world. And in a post-apocalyptic world, society has already reestablished itself. There are nations, there are forms of government already establishing that are moving and are changing and ever shifting, that it gives players a lot more different avenue and approach on a lot of things in order to inflict political intrigue or explorations, and navigating new scenarios and role plays, because now you have a lot more I guess cause and effect routes on what you decide in terms of a whole of a city and their beliefs, their culture, and because cultures are now blending, you know, ideas are exchanging, and so
Yeah.
forms. So we're navigating that area where it's like you have a cultural and almost a political shift in almost every nation because of either strife, conflict in ideologies and sociologies and stuff like that. Is that a word? Sociology? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. It is now, if not.
No. See, this is why lore it goes to her. She does all the writing. So
So
but
you sorry, go ahead. You had more to say.
oh yeah, no. And so I think that and I one of the, and our big influence in terms of just setting itself too, was Dishonored 2, that kind
Oh,
of industrial, like mid industrial, like type of effect. And so we don't see a lot of that in tabletop RPG. At least I haven't, and I'm sure there's games out there
yeah. Not
for that.
many. Not many.
But that blending of tech and magic too is what is a huge draw for us. So
Which has been really cool to see because I definitely like some tech with my magic as a fan of Shadowrun, and I think that's the only one that I could think of that kind of blends those two together.
mhm.
But definitely some of my favorite. So you mentioned in your Kickstarter that there will be some campaign releases. Do you have an idea of the timeline of those releases?
So, as much as so the process, we spoke about this earlier, is that how I end up making a lot of these modules and like one shots and stuff is that I do an impromptu GM session and of where the story goes, and that's how I normally do GMing. But and in terms of the playtest, it's been finalized, it's been kind of cleaned up, so that way other folks can play through the adventure as well.
Hmm.
And I've already been through the process of kind of outlining what the direction that first campaign is going, and also in terms of it's also its consequences, and there are some pretty big ones as well. Um, and so and I've already play tested through nearly all the scenario, but it's been a while since I've actually been able to play test for that scenario. But it hopefully well, after Kickstarter,
Hmm.
hopefully if Kickstarter is successful, because you never know. um and so it will allow me to kind of play through it completely to kind of narrow down. And so I would love to have it ready for when the book releases,
Hmm.
and we'll have the jumping part act of the scenario pretty much done, where your players can go from there. The pre-adventure module for new players to kind of get a sense of the world and the dangers that's happening right now. Um, but overall, the story itself, I already identified like the different acts and different arcs and the multi-session campaigns and the intrigue levels of each type of arcs. And so I'm excited about that. But now it's more of just like, all right, here's my ideas, let's give
Yeah.
it to a writer, let's have him fill in all the intrigue, or him her fill in all the intrigue, and then get the artwork set. So there's a lot more involved in process to it. But right now the focus is just getting the books finished, and then once that kind of gets finalized, then we can start worrying about that, because we'll be able to easily get that out of the way once everything is finalized for the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we're looking forward to that. Um, so this has kind of been covered a little bit as you go. We're talking about the creation of this and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to kind of zero in on kind of one of the biggest challenges in turning your mod into this whole new living world.
So the biggest challenge is the crunch and making it enjoyable.
Hmm.
So because crunch it's going to be tedious, and it tends to be tedious because there is math involved. So because we're big narrative players, we want to see how we can give that um, masking of crunch to make it enjoyable. So one of the more newer features that we involved into the game is a term of vert. Yeah, you just said. We actually have that book back here. We met
Oh,
the creators of them at Gen
oh,
Con
that's
2 years
awesome. Me
ago.
too. I have it like
Uh,
right over there somewhere.
and so one of the features in combat, because we have locational damage in combat, is power hits.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how that works is that if you do a certain amount of damage past the threshold, regardless of how much armor they have to mitigate it, it does an additional effect. So if you hit them in the leg, it knocks them to the ground. Hit them in the head, it disorients them. Hit them in the arm, they have a chance to be disarmed. And if you hit them in the chest, they go back. And there's no save against it because it's supposed to mimic a good hit on your character. So you can be heavily armored, you're still going to the ground. So, and when we first did our playtest of that, probably about 3 years ago, the very first character player that playtested that was playing a mason board type of character. Charged in, swung with a mace, did the power hit, knocked his target on the ground, and he had enough action points, and we do have action points, and I'll go in a bit on that, to do a follow-up hit. And he did enough power hits on the torso of the character.
Mm-hmm.
So visually, you can now explain as a GM, your character rushes towards your target, swings at his legs, sweeping his legs from under him, and follow it with a downward smash to the ground. And so that power hit, because they couldn't move further back, dealt an additional damage because you hit him toward the ground.
Nice.
And so it was like that nice element of just that thematic combat scenarios. And in terms of also the high to crunch too, is that in our system, if you have enough ranks and skills, you don't need to roll to pass it. Because if a character is good enough at completing tasks, like say breaching a door, and they're good at like picking locks and stuff, they really shouldn't have to roll for that.
Yeah.
Unless unless it's obviously outside circumstance, they're getting shot at, and they don't want to they want to hurry up and speed their time up, then you throw in that necessary roll. But you still they still are good enough that even a poor roll will eventually still make them successful, but the roll encompasses the extra stress. So
yeah, that's cool. When reading through the degrees of success and everything, I did love kind of like that application, so that you could be like, yeah, I do this, I should not have to roll, because I've spent time and effort being pretty good at this.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what we want to provide. Your character specializes in an area, you should be good in that area, unless you go up in a challenge that would equate your necessary requirement to roll. So
so you talked about hoping to gain other IPs and stuff like that. Has the thought ever occurred within your mind, passed through it or something like that, about making another kind of homebrew game?
I have thought of like different other games that I can develop that is not similar to the system, but like more like board games, because once you design something, you always kind of want to design more and more things. But those are kind of like on a side shelf right now, so, because we're focusing more on the TNC than anything else. So.
That's fair.
Hopefully I can keep working on it. So
just need to create two of you and then just have them go off and do several things at the same time.
Make some more money for me.
Yeah.
Which that funding is always an issue. So
oh yeah.
Which is why the Kickstarter.
Everyone needs it. And man.
No, it's always that one thing where it's just like, yeah, let's make another me so we could be more poor, like.
because that's what it would eventually lead to, right?
It's more food. So.
Yeah, another me won't make me more productive. It'll just take more resources from my friends and my house.
Right.
Hey, what's up, Jay Walls and the people of James Corp? Hope you guys had a wonderful time playing Dungeon World. I was there briefly earlier today, but thank you for the raid, James. I wish I could hear your accent, because I love it and I love watching you guys. But yeah, we are talking about TNC, the Nuadan Chronicles, which is a post-apocalyptic electro role-playing game, which is out right now on Kickstarter, being crowdfunded. We will put up the link here for you guys to check it out, and we do hope you guys go up and support it.
B's already on it.
I don't need to do anything. Can she just stay on the channel for the next couple years or something?
So Adelphus_89, that's my wife. She's also the co-creator, so it looks like she's monitoring the chat right now. So if you do have any lore questions and stuff too, you can ask her directly in chat. So
any questions, feel free, because it looks like she has a very high initiative.
Which is surprising. Her dex score is relatively low.
It's improved initiative. It's
it's all the feats,
traits,
right?
and everything that just offsets that. So something we talked about earlier, and I know I teased it, and it's something I'm very interested in and curious about. Is you also do voice acting work?
Amateur, because I still haven't got a professional gig. I'm trying to go into that industry, but obviously busy with this. But it's fun though, because to be able to do voices for my own tables and stuff like that. Even though I'm still not that good at it yet, it does require a lot of practice, but a few voices here and there is enough to be able to have a nice add-on to it, because I was part of 3 characters, I believe. No, I don't even remember, for a storied podcast on SoundCloud. So that was fun to do. So
how many voices are we going to get to hear tonight?
Oh no, probably 1 or 2. Because I'm still trying to fight off like a small cold right now, so don't want to ruin the throat. So
yeah, I totally understand that.
SoundCloud rapper Jason. It's like, you are listening to Balu on SoundCloud.
Yeah, you said you're going to give us an awesome intro.
For a penny for a tale?
Yeah, go ahead. Roll it.
This is Penny for a Tale, and we are interviewing Jason of Broken Dice and their game, The Nuwadan Chronicles.
Boom, and there's like explosions from behind and everything. Which is gonna be awesome. You guys just have to imagine it. It's there. We promise.
It's there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's all up here.
Exactly. We were role playing. So you guys have 4 iconic, amazing characters. One of my favorites is behind you right now. But what is your favorite?
Oh man, I've been asked that several times now this past couple months, even at Gen Con, and my favorite character, I would probably have to be Caden. And he's the one with the sword and shield, or shield and sword spear from Ultras. And I mean, it's just, I love the design of his armor, because it has that almost storm dragon scrawl across his chest, and like the dragon on the shield and everything like that. So we are just, it was a cool feature that we got to work with our artists, and all of our iconics have been drawn by Gerald Singh, and he actually created his own art studio called 1010 Studios, and they've been doing a lot of artwork. So like if you go to our Kickstarter page, you got Svedra and Ashayu, their artwork. He did those, and the thumbnail for our Kickstarter page, he drew that. And speaking of the living story for our game, where we are wanting to official playtest and campaigns and things like that we release for the game to be canonized, our playtest, the golem picture and the thumbnail are both results from our earlier playtest. We got them drawn. And so that's kind of where we're hoping that once we once we get the finalization of like the total majority results of this current package that we have on Kickstarter, one of the goals is to have that result drawn of like whatever happens at the end, and the final outcome, so we can showcase that too. So that way awesome. players that have played it, such as yourself later on, they'd be like, I was a part of that. I helped with that. So
I made that mess.
It was like, yeah, you see that thing on fire? That was me.
Yeah. Let me add this fire with the rest of the fire.
No, it's like, oh gosh, IT crowd. I got that reference.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's,
I figured you
but
would.
no, and so one of the things like, oh yeah, you see right there, that used to be an island there. There's not no more. Like, so,
Players got close to it, and really that's
yeah.
the only explanation you guys need.
Hmm.
So I'm seeing a lot of questions concerning like the backgrounds
Hmm.
and such from like a player's perspective. So you
Yes.
can you talk to us a little bit like what is character creation going to look like? What type of characters can we make? Can I be a mage and technomancer? Can I use a gun and shoot out fire? Can I just be an accountant? What are our options?
Yes to all of that. So what we are allowing is full character customization in and progression. So we don't have levels. We have what's called threat or threat rating for characters, and that's more of a gauge for the GM to determine what type of monster or antagonist that they can go up against. And because as your character gets skilled, you kind of want to challenge them with more enemies or stronger characters is with any
Yeah.
type of narrative experience, because we don't want to the term levels to me in any type of game is more of like you're always going to get something as you get higher and higher in it.
Hmm.
So if you go up a level, do I get more HP? No, and plus you don't really gain HP in our game. There's very limited instances where you can,
Hmm.
but the backgrounds in itself, so when character creation, how it works is that you do select a background, and we have a lot of them, and that's kind of where your character's jumping off point is before they become a mercenary. So their previous experience gives them a little bit of an edge to the route they want to go. So for instance, if you're a thief, or someone that burglarizes or robs people, you have a small narrative and very minor bonus going toward that, or type of traded bonus that gives you like a reroll and choose the worst result or choose the second result, even if it's lower or worse. And so those kind of aspects to kind of give your character an edge, but it doesn't, excuse me, doesn't prevent you from progressing to any other avenues. So if you do start off that way and you want to go into magic or tech or both, you can. And the only real thing that will prevent you from going down certain areas where you gain talents or skills
Hmm.
is your character's initial attributes, or characteristics as we call them. Because if you don't have a high enough willpower, it's going to be very difficult for you to cast magic. But you still can cast magic even if you don't have a high enough willpower. It's just not going to be very good for you.
Yeah, because there's you guys have the Flux system, right?
Hmm.
What is that? I'm sure people are very curious about kind of what the magic system looks like.
So one of the things that we always try to kind of answer is that if there's magic, especially in the sense of a D20 system or fantasy, and like in D&D 5e or Pathfinder and similar systems, is that they have magic where you do create food and water and shape earth and things like that, and it's just like, why is there ever problems on the planet type of deal? Why are there famines? Just
Yeah.
one person can solve a lot of issues. And we understand that if you have these um wonderful magical abilities, we understood that tech is not really necessary because you just solve things with magic. There's no consequences for those magics. You just rest for 8 hours and then you get the magic again. Whereas we wanted to find, like, kind of give that balance on why the world would pursue tech if you have
Yeah.
unlimited use of magic. And in our game, you do have unlimited use of magic until you die. So, because and so what ends up happening is that we have an inherent consequential system in our game, where the more you use magic or the more stronger the magic is, you generate a negative energy or an imbalance in your character, where the more you accrue as you keep doing magic and more, the likelihood of a bad event will occur to balance itself out through you. So that can range from, ooh, it's a cool brisk wind that's going through the party, and to, oh wait, there's a black hole, right? Like, so
Like that usually happens at parties.
I mean, just one of those examples. An earlier play test, they're fighting in a hangar, and the magic user procced a flux of test and rolled really low and released a ton of energy. to the point where it was creating a perpetual blizzard for 6 rounds inside the building. so me as a GM was like, all right, time to add in those conditional stuff. It's like, all right, give me a toughness task roll. All right, you suffer stamina damage. Let's hope you don't pass out from the brisk cold. All of a sudden, you're wearing linens, like so that's kind of where we want to drive, is that even though it is can have unlimited use in our world, people sought alternatives through technology, which is why tech evolved in our world alongside magic, because there are going to be schools of thoughts of, oh, we want to be able to teach people to better control the magic. And then there's also schools of thoughts that magic is inherently evil, it should be banned, everybody should die that uses it. So, and then you have your automatic ideology conflict right there that you can showcase in the game. So
definitely. So for people who are curious what a sword spear looks like, ka-chow. Looks pretty cool.
That's Caden, one of my favorites.
So someone asked concerning Flux, like, is it like a wild magic table? As a GM, how do you decide what happens when like a Flux event occurs?
So we do have a table, but rather than just rolling to see what's on the table, you roll to see what gets released. And so, and the difference in what you roll to what you actually have is the numerical value that gets released, and the table will dictate what happens from that. So there are talents and stuff that can help alleviate your rolls or re-rolls to it, but this way you can just kind of get a gauge. So it's like, well, my flux is getting really high, something bad or more likely going to happen. Like, and so you as a magic user, you're just like, all right, well, I'm going to not cast so much. And so it has its own built-in balance to it. And so magic in of itself has an exponential growth in power, because as you get better, you can do more powerful things at a reduced flux cost, or theoretically reduce flux costs, because there are avenues, but you can end up doing more with the magic and things like that. So it's one of those nice mechanics that you happen to go across when you're making this, to be able to balance it as well. But because it does grow exponentially, that is, as a designer, you're just like, all right, so that +1, all right, that's going to be multiplied by 7, like, and average HP is 26. All right, let's see, and they can shoot 6 of them. Like, it's like, all right, that's all right. So, well, I mean, at that point, you're already the superior magic user, and we're just like, well, all right, that makes sense. Like, you should be able to, wipe the floor of your magic. It's just you might burst like a bubble, afterwards.
So if you had, if you were living in this world and you had access to magic, would you totally use it all the time, or are you on the other side who believes magic would be evil?
I would use it in controlled amounts to kind of like probably benefit just a little bit, because of the very nature and danger of it. And it's not so much access of magic. Everybody, every human in the world can do it, even if you're unschooled. So if your character does not have any affinity or training into it, they learn the words of magic that allows them to cast that ability, they can do it. It's just the penalty is that much greater because they don't know how to utilize it at all. So it's almost like you're opening up a flux rift or some sort to just be able to pull in and create or manifest things that is not there. So
yeah, and one of my favorite aspects was making the spells out of like these key words that you guys had, and I'm really interested to see kind of like the final book and all the words and stuff you combine. It very much reminds me of Invisible Sun has this kind of weaver magic user who combines like different concepts together, and it's something I've always enjoyed more so than the the typical. I have these amount of spells, and kind of that rigid system. There's a name to it. It starts with a V.
There's Tasha's hideous laughter,
yeah.
But no, I would say the influence in that regards would probably be Ars Magica, where they did have this kind of like ad hoc word based spells and things like that. I think that's the one. And where they can allow you to just kind of build these spells, uh, and that to me, even because are derived to the customization of the game itself, it adds more to that flavor and things like that. So
Yeah, and I think really lends to kind of like the concept of magic in of
mhm.
itself as something that just, it's creative. It's something you put
Mhm.
together. It's, I've never empathized with a wizard at all, but that's just me.
Now you can just have a barrier up in front, cast barrier on yourself reactively while shooting a steam rifle, like it's like magic, and while wearing armor. So that's one of the things. The one things I always was annoyed with the fact is like, how come magic users can't use heavy armor?
I know.
Why? You can in our game. You want to go that route? You can. You're just going to be a giant target, because you can only defend yourself so many times.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I mean, in all my games, it's always Geek the Mage. Get that guy all the time.
mm,
So like having the ability for these anyone can put together these phrases and such and use magic.
mhm.
What's kind of in society the thing that prevents kind of the situation found in like Dragon Age and the Dragon Age universe, where you have these normal people diving into these spheres of power that they have no ability to control and kind of creating these horrific events in their cities? Or is there any control, and that's kind of part of it?
It really does depend on where you're at, because there are societal acceptance of people using it, and then we do have those that are trained to the point where it's like they're called awakened,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they do have kind of a mark on them to kind of signify that they've been to Sundari, or they worked with a missionary, or their outreach and stuff like that, to be able to control their magic better.
Mm-hmm.
Now might be areas where like any non-awakened user using magic comes with the penalty of crime and things like that. And so obviously you can't really control anybody that's banditry, or someone that is an outlaw, but the general taboo of how dangerous it
Mm-hmm.
is what's kind of keeping people from it. Because if I can shoot fire from my little pistol here, or I can probably turn into a demon and shoot fire from my hand, I'm going to shoot fire from my little pistol here. Like, so, and that's kind of where tech evolved to the point where it's just like, yeah, no, we want to shoot fire without having to worry about turning into a demon, so.
Yeah, I'm just imagining like going to the Dragon Age universe with a pistol and be like, guys, I've solved the
Yeah,
problem.
I solved the problems.
Yeah,
I solved all our problems.
Yeah, we don't have to summon demons anymore. I got it. It's a gun. We're good.
Mhm.
But it sounds awesome. So you've talked about kind of like the society in this wonderful world and such, and we are coming up upon the one shot time. So I want to be very careful with our time that we have left. But you have these amazing different nations that will be more so fleshed out in the final book, as well as supplements, is my understanding.
That is correct.
But the first one will be set in Udris, correct?
Uldris, yes.
Uldris.
Uldris is kind of like this first step into almost a guild-like system, where that's how we introduce players, that they're all part of a guild. So one, it makes it easier for new players to come in. It's like, oh yeah, no, they sent me along to be reinforcements.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, makes sense. Like, and so that awkward like first session introduction is like, how did you all meet? No, it was like, no, we've been working together for a couple of whiles now. Like, it was like, all right, let's get going. So
it's like,
kind of
me, Charlie.
It's like, I was with you 2 summers ago. That one shot that your character was with. You finally come back because like you can get to play.
So. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that sounds awesome. Out of the ones that you guys have kind of confirmed and thought about, which one is your favorite, or would be the most interesting to read about?
Oh, for nations?
Yeah.
I would say Lamaria would probably be my most favorite. I'm looking forward to that very tech-heavy centric society, because because we're advancing the timeline more, technology is going to increase more as well. So getting to that point, because we already do have exo frames for the peacekeepers. By the way, we call the local police peacekeepers, so we can say the GM is called the PKs are coming.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so because if players mess up, it's like the PKs are coming. So
And they will.
um, and so, to advance the technology, because the technology, there's no gunpowder, there's no oil in our world.
Mhm.
So the theory of how technology advances in our timeline, in our game, has just been just um, very fun to just kind of theorize, like, how does armor advance when projectile weaponry doesn't overshadow it for 300 years. So, and that's kind of why melee fighting still exists in our world, is because ranged weapons do not kill them outright or do significant enough damage, like individually, to kind of overshadow the use of armor. So melee still is kind of the more secured and preferred method of eliminating a target, whereas ranged is more of a have an off,
Yeah.
like an off support where you can make them in a position to get hurt easier from melee fighters. So
It sounds like it's been a very interesting journey, just kind of figuring out all these questions within this world. Um, have you gotten to play your own game?
have I got to play my own game? Yes, maybe like once or twice, because when B runs it, so that way she can get up to date on the new mechanics and stuff like that and designs, I normally play during that. But the thing is that I'm so well like versed in like the theory crafting of it,
Mhm.
that like, oh yeah, no, our starting character, yeah, I made this character that can swing this weapon, and then eventually like map it out on kind of like, and I always like to try something new
Yeah.
with that. It's like, and it's always been a blast for me to just make a theory crafted character, because it's just the possibilities are in there's numerous amounts of possibilities in our character creation. So
I know, right? I was checking it out and just thinking of the different, because I love blades and magic, so definitely combining the two, that's something I will do. So for those watching, look at the maps. I know definitely South 2012 will love these.
So yeah, these maps right here are done by Jared Blando, and he's done maps for both I believe for D&D and Pathfinder as well. So yeah, we strive for quality in our game.
Quality you have. Yeah, so that's the map of the world, and then this is the land of Uldris.
And if you're familiar with Rob Lazarati, he does a lot of the cityscape maps and stuff for D&D since I think AD&D.
Yeah.
We're planning on commissioning him to do a lot of our cityscape maps too, so we can get that in really nice crisp details of our like inner world and stuff like that. So
Yeah, in total, how much commissions do you think will be on the final product of the books? Ballpark it.
total commissions.
Yeah, different artworks, maps, etc.
Oh man, that's I think our current goal is, oh, I actually don't remember. It's just trying to plan out, because we want to maintain that quality.
Is he asking about stretch goals?
No. Commissions for how many art pieces, unique art pieces, are going to be in each book.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah, she's like, a lot, a lot. I mean, because the thing is, it's a new world that we want to present. So the more art we have, the better it is for GMs to be able to visualize and players to visualize it. So.
All right, awesome. That is, so we are coming up on time. This is a great ending point right here. People, if you have questions, feel free to stay on. In about 20 minutes, Jason will be running us through their quick start, which you will find on their Kickstarter. So feel free to hop on over there, learn more about the game, check it out, make sure to support it, and then come watch us at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, and hopefully we do the World Justice definitely there'll be voices, at least 2 from our man Jason.
Oh my gosh, put me on the, on the
Oh
spot
yeah,
right now.
there's a spotlight over you. You just don't know it yet. So yeah, we will see you then, and looking forward to it. So see you guys then. Bye.
Bye.